The cabin was supposed to be a retreat. No Wi Fi, no cell service, just me, a stack of books, and the endless whisper of pine trees. It was late October, and the air carried that sharp, earthy bite that promised winter wasn't far off. I'd found the place online, a steal for a week's rental in the middle of nowhere, somewhere up in the Adirondacks. The listing warned about the isolation, but that's what I wanted. Peace, quiet, a break from the constant hum of notifications. The first night was perfect. I lit a fire, cracked open a paperback, and let the stillness settle over me like a blanket. The only sounds were the crackling logs and the occasional rustle of leaves outside. I slept better than I had in months. The second night, things changed. It started with the radio. The cabin had an old AM/FM set, a relic perched on the kitchen counter, its wood casing chipped and faded. I hadn't touched it, didn't even know if it worked, but around midnight it sputtered to life. Static at first, loud and jagged, like someone chewing glass. I jolted upright on the couch, the book sliding off my lap. The dial glowed faintly, a sickly yellow, and the needle twitched between frequencies. Then a voice broke through. 7, 9, 3. It was low, guttural, like someone speaking through a throat full of gravel. The numbers repeated, slow and deliberate. 7, 9, 3. Over and over, no rhythm, no urgency, just a cold, mechanical chant. I crossed the room and twisted the knob. Nothing. The power switch was already off. I yanked the cord from the wall and the voice stopped mid-number, leaving the cabin silent again. I told myself it was a fluke, old wiring, maybe a signal bleeding through from some distant station. I went to bed, but sleep didn't come easy. The numbers stuck in my head, looping like a broken record. The next morning, I found the radio plugged back in. I stared at it, the cord neatly coiled beside the outlet. I hadn't touched it. The cabin was locked tight. No one could have come in. My stomach twisted, but I forced a laugh. I'd been half asleep, I reasoned. Maybe I'd plugged it back in myself and forgotten. I left it alone and spent the day hiking, trying to shake the unease. That night, it happened again. The static erupted at exactly midnight, louder this time, rattling the windows. The voice returned, chanting those same numbers. 7, 9, 3. I didn't bother with the switch. I grabbed a hammer from the toolbox under the sink and smashed the radio to pieces. Plastic and wires spilled across the counter, and the noise died with a final pathetic crackle. I stood there, panting, the hammer trembling in my hand. Silence pressed in, thick and heavy. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. At 3 a.m., I woke to a sound from the living room, not static this time, a low, rhythmic tapping, like fingernails on glass. I crept out of bed, the floorboards creaking under my weight. The fire had burned out, leaving the room dark except for the faint moonlight spilling through the windows. The tapping grew louder as I approached the front door. Something was out there. I peered through the peephole. At first, I saw nothing, just the porch, the trees, the shadows swaying in the wind. Then a shape moved into view. It was tall, too tall, its limbs bent at odd angles like a marionette with half its strings cut. Its head tilted toward the door, and though I couldn't see its face, I felt it staring. The tapping stopped. My breath caught in my throat. It spoke. 7, 9, 3. The voice was the same as the radio's, but closer, sharper, like it was clawing its way into my skull. I stumbled back, heart slamming against my ribs. The thing didn't move. It just stood there, head cocked, as if waiting for me to answer. I bolted to the bedroom, locked the door, and shoved the dresser against it. The tapping resumed, slow and deliberate, now on the window. I didn't sleep. I sat there, clutching the hammer, listening as the tapping circled the cabin, door, window, wall, roof. It never sped up, never slowed down, just that steady, relentless rhythm, punctuated by the voice chanting those numbers every few minutes. 7, 9, 3. By dawn, it stopped. I waited an hour before daring to look outside. The porch was empty, the forest still. No footprints, no signs of anything. I packed my bag and decided to leave. Isolation be damned. But when I turned the key in my car, the engine sputtered and died. The battery was drained. I had no choice but to stay. The day passed in a blur of dread. I kept the hammer close, jumping at every creak and rustle. As night fell, I barricaded myself in the bedroom, piling furniture against the door and windows. Midnight came. The static returned, not from the smashed radio, but from everywhere. It poured through the walls, the floor, the ceiling, a deafening roar that made my teeth ache. The voice followed. 7, 9, 3. The tapping started again, faster now, a frantic drumbeat on every surface. I screamed for it to stop, but my voice drowned in the noise. Then the lights flickered, and the room went black. In the darkness, I heard the door splinter. It was inside. I swung the hammer blindly as footsteps, too many, too uneven, shuffled closer. Something cold brushed my arm, and I lashed out, hitting nothing but air. The voice was right beside me now, whispering in my ear. 7, 9, 3. I swung again, and this time the hammer connected. A wet crunch, a guttural hiss, and the thing retreated, its steps dragging across the floor. I didn't wait. I ran, bursting out of the cabin into the freezing night. The forest swallowed me as I stumbled through the trees, branches clawing at my face. Behind me, the tapping resumed, growing fainter but never stopping. I don't know how long I ran. Hours, maybe. The sun was rising when I collapsed near a road. A trucker found me, half frozen and babbling about numbers. He drove me to town and I checked into a motel, refusing to speak about it. That was 3 days ago. I'm writing this now because I can't sleep. The TV in my room turned on an hour ago, even though it's unplugged. Static fills the screen, and every few minutes a voice breaks through. 7, 9, 3. It's louder now, closer. And last night I heard tapping on the window. I don't think it's going to stop.